Hello everybody. So I'm going to do this question and answer session. Thanks to everybody who sent questions. I will see how many I can get through in the next half an hour. First question I got was, if you could give someone with ME one piece of advice for recovery, what would it be? Thanks. Another message coming through that you can see in here. Thanks for that. So if you could give someone with ME/CFS one piece of advice for recovery, what would it be? Assuming that they haven't done brain training. So someone's actually asked me this question before, and the answer I gave them and the answer I'll give now is, do not underestimate the power of calm. Do everything you can do to reduce stress and to increase calm. This can have a significant impact. And actually, if you understand the science of what happens when we switch on the sympathetic nervous system response and switch on the parasympathetic response, you'll understand why what I've just said is important. If you want to have a better understanding of that, maybe put the word webinar in the chat, and if you put that in the chat within the next 24 hours of watching this live session, I will tag you and add the link to the webinar, which is still available. Okay, doing that one thing was the single most important thing that made a difference to me. I had ME/CFS for 8 years, and in that time, although I made some progress, I was still very up and down. And it was when I learned tools to help me catch when I was switching on the fight or flight mechanism and to calm that, to create a more parasympathetic state, the rest and digest state, that I actually started to make big improvements in my health. Anything else I want to say on that? And yeah, if you can achieve that on your own, great. If you recognize there's a gap between where you are and where you need to be in terms of generating calm, consider getting help with that. Okay, I was trained as a counselor and I had cognitive behavioral therapy, and when I had CBT, the psychologist said, you know, managing your stress, learning to how to deal with the stress could have a profound impact on your health and your energy. But the tools they gave me to do that didn't actually make the difference. Okay, so that's a very short answer to that question, but I hope that gives you some food for thought. As I say, if you want to get more insight into that, do read my free report, ME/CFS, The Missing Piece, which takes about 15 minutes to read, or check out the webinar where I go into the issues covered in that report in much more detail. Okay, so second question. Is it of greater benefit to do one longer session of meditation in a day or several shorter ones throughout the day? Now, I'm not an expert on meditation, although Buddhist meditation is something that I've been doing for many years, and I spent many years actually going to a live session. That was there was a meditation class very near to where I lived, and so when I had ME/CFS, actually, that's the first time I started going to that class. So I've learned something from going to those classes over the year. What I would say is this: are you a beginner? If you are a beginner, then it can be good to just start small. Try different things, see what works for you. What I know is that if I'm meditating on my own, doing a meditation for 5 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes is about a good time for me. If I'm actually doing a group meditation, if I'm at a meditation class, I can quite easily meditate for 50 minutes. Sometimes that's how long the sessions are. And there's something really powerful about meditating with other people. Now, meditating in a class physically with other people in the class is one thing, but I've also noticed, and people have given me the feedback that when I've done relaxation sessions on these Facebook Lives, people find them, people often say they feel more relaxed. So there is something about doing group meditation, even if it's an online thing, that seems to have a more powerful effect for some people. So consider that. Interestingly, one of my clients actually trained in transcendental meditation, which is not something I've done. And what he said is they recommend, and this is research based, that 20 minutes is a good amount of time for a sitting for TM, for example. So, really find out what works for you. As I say, if you're a beginner, can be good to start small. I actually use a timer when I do meditation. I'll set my timer for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and I'll just really make an active commitment to allow myself to enjoy that meditation. Sometimes meditation is easy and I get into a really deep state of relaxation. Sometimes it's more challenging, and actually even very experienced meditators have said the same thing. Sometimes they sit down to meditate and they have a great meditation. They really feel the benefit. Sometimes it is more challenging. So I hope that gives you some food for thought. So next question, how do I find my baseline? That's a great question. So in an ideal world, if we were to imagine removing stress from the equation, that would make things simpler. Because, for instance, you might say, well, let's actually just take a step back and identify what a baseline is. A baseline is the level of activity that you can do without experiencing symptoms the next day or the day after that. So let's say, for example, if I think back to the time when I had ME/CFS, there were times when my body could tolerate about 15 minutes of physical activity, walking, for instance, per day. And if I kept within that, I noticed that I didn't feel any symptoms. If I went beyond that, I would notice symptoms, might be, pain in my legs, or complete exhaustion. But there were times when I experienced stress, which meant that I actually couldn't even do that 15 minutes. And one of the issues with cognitive behavioral therapy is it suggests you keep, certainly the way I was taught cognitive behavioral therapy, graded exercise therapy, was that you should stick to that 15 minutes. And I know that had I stuck to doing 15 minutes, even when I was feeling poorly because I'd overdone it, that would have just resulted me in feeling even worse the next day. So I completely ignored that advice, and I knew that on those days when I was feeling worse, maybe because I'd experienced some stress, that I would pull back and I would intuit how much activity I could do. I might feel like I could literally walk for a minute or 5 minutes, or what I would do if I was really poorly is I would do a minute of Qigong. And if you don't know what that is, it's a bit like Tai Chi. Go onto YouTube, there are some videos you can have a look at. And I would literally do that for 1 minute. And I might do that a number of times in the day. If I felt up to it, I would do it 3 or 5 times. And it's a really interesting practice because I did find that even when I was quite poorly, it seemed to strengthen my body. I have thought I must get in touch with my teacher and ask if he'll do an interview or a session online that you can actually watch. So that is in the pipeline. So as I say, for instance, if you're experiencing stress, then that might throw your baseline out of kilter. And the key is to recover, and ultimately the key is to learn how to manage the stress more effectively so that your level of activity doesn't lower. And by gently maintaining that baseline for a while and maintaining more calm, my experience is that people find that their activity levels actually improve. What I noticed is that there were times when my body was saying to me, actually, you can do a little bit more activity. And if I didn't do that activity, you know, it's like I wasn't using up the energy in my body and I wouldn't sleep so well. And actually, when I started just trusting that it was okay to do a bit more activity, and I still felt okay the next day, I would feel, you know, my sleep would be better and I progressively improved in what I could do. Let's see if there's anything else I want to say about that. So yeah, the other thing is part of that increasing your baseline is to break the boom and bust pattern. I've made a whole video on that, which is on YouTube. I think it's in the group or on the Facebook page, MECFS Explored as well. So check that out because that's really important part of establishing a baseline and building on that baseline. So again, I hope that's given you a bit of food for thought. I'm going to have a quick look, see if there's any questions. So hi to everyone who's on the call. Harvard says approximately 21 minutes a day made brain changes in one sitting. So yeah, so that sort of ties in with the TM approach, which is 20 minutes a day. So thanks for that. Hi to everybody. From someone, hi, hello to you all. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for joining in. So the next question, I have a couple of questions. One is, I do not take any brain pain drugs at all anymore, thanks to a spinal stimulator. However, CFS FM symptoms are screaming. Where do I start? Which one do I start with to attempt remission again? And then the other question, which I'm going to put these two questions together and deal with them, is how do I move on from a very long plateau? So sorry to both of you to hear that you're experiencing those things. So I'm going to share some thoughts based on the work I've been doing with people. I've been working with people with ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, for over 12 years. So few thoughts. If I'm working with someone and they describe what both of those people have just described, what I'm going to be doing is actually aiming to get some clarity on what the issue is. So diagnosing the key issue. And this ties into another question someone asked me recently. What is the roadmap that will help me make progress, move forward? And I gave that some thought. And what I recognized or what I identified is that there were 6 key pieces that I think people need. The first is they need to get clear on the 2 key models of health and the model which actually will help them the most. I'll talk about that very briefly in a minute. And again, I go into this in more depth in my webinar. The next thing is we need to actually identify the research that sheds light on what's going on. It's very easy to be overwhelmed with all the research that is available, and my view is that some of that research sort of cuts through the noise and actually identifies what are the root causes and some of the key issues. Whereas some of the research is actually identifying explanations for specific symptoms, but is not actually connecting that up to the bigger picture. As I say, I'm not going to go into that in great detail. If you want more understanding of that, check out my free report or check out the webinar, which is about an hour and a half long, but it goes into this in more depth. And if we put those 2 pieces together, model of health plus research, that can actually give us insights, understanding, so that we actually can take some positive steps. Those positive steps might include making changes to diet, making changes in terms of taking supplements, and a great resource if you're exploring that, is Dr. Sarah Myhill's book. She talks about some of the tests that you can ask your doctor to do that doctors don't tend to do, that can actually give you some really useful answers in terms of what supplements might help you. So very, very briefly, let me just skip a slide. There are two models of health, and often people, without realizing them, people are adopting the medical model of health. As I say, I'm not going to explain too much about that because I cover that in the report and in the webinar. But there's also an integrated model of health, which looks at all the key factors that can influence health. So 1 is our genes, 2 is medical intervention, 3 is our environment, 4 is our lifestyle. We can break down lifestyle into a number of factors. Nutrition, inputs, what we're putting into our body. So for instance, if someone's taking supplements, if someone's smoking or taking drugs, these are things that are impacting or potentially can be impacting on our health. We can also look at our relationship to our outside world. So for instance, our work-life balance for those people who are working, our relationships to others, are they supporting us or are they undermining us? And we can look at our relationship to ourselves. And actually, if we look at our relationship to ourselves and have an understanding of that, that can actually impact and drive all those other pieces. And we can break that down further into looking at our relationship to our physical body, our relationship to our emotions, our relationship to our mind, our outlook. Okay, again, I talk about all of this stuff in more depth in the webinar. So do check that out. So if I go back to the question, what I would be wanting to find out is, for instance, on a scale of 0 to 10, what score would you give for your health out of 10? I would be wanting to understand what are your stress levels like at the moment. So I get people to score what percentage of the thoughts you're having each day are calming, nurturing, and supportive. And often when I work with people with ME, CFS, very commonly people will say 5%, 10%, 20%. And what that then makes clear to me and to them is how much they are activating the fight or flight state. So if I get a clear idea that they're just a couple of questions that I ask people. What score would you give for your health? What score would you give for the percentage of thoughts you're having each day that are calming, nurturing, supportive? There are other questions I ask, and actually when I do a free strategy session, and these I do 3 every week. I offer 3 free sessions every week. These are some of the questions I ask. There's some other questions that I ask, and it gives me and them a clearer picture of where they are right now. And then we can actually start to identify what steps they need to take to move forward. So, and in my experience, if we've got the model, if we've got the research that sheds light and we've now got insights so that we can take some action, the next thing I really want to do is see what tools the person has. So for instance, if someone says, I have done the brain training, I'll get them to show me how they use the tools, how they're actually implementing those tools. And we'll identify whether there are some tweaks that they need to make, because often I'll work with someone and the tools for some reason don't quite fit them. There is a conflict between them using the tools, and sometimes it's to do with whether that tool really is a good fit, whether they need to tweak the tools in some way. So for instance, I talk about when I'm working with someone, we're creating the X method, X being the person's name. So if I'm working with John, we're going to create the John method. If the method they've learned isn't working for them, we need to look at what tweaks we make in order to get those tools working for them. So having the tools is one thing, but implementing them in a way that works for you is really critical. Because sometimes people say to me, I've been implementing the tools, but I haven't got the results I want. And I'm feeling bad because other people have got the changes. Is it me? And actually, in my experience, it's not because it's the person. It's just that they need more help to get them to apply the tools in a way that works for them. So the sixth piece is to ensure that you're getting the support you need. And, it's your job to decide whether you have got the support you need to move forward. If you are feeling stuck, then I really encourage you to consider looking at working with a coach. I've got clients who literally they have 15 minutes once a week for a while, and we focus on one thing. We give them one task to focus on, and they come back the next week and we find out how they're progressing, what tweaks we need to make to see how they can move forward. I've just actually finished yesterday 12-week group coaching, and what is great to hear is that people saying that they feel that they have progressed from where they were at week 1 to week 12. So let me just have another quick look, checking in. Hello from Las Vegas. Nice to see you on the call. Thanks for saying hello. Yeah, maybe if you want to just say where you are in the world. It's always nice to hear where people are from. So I hope that's given you some thoughts about that. Okay, in order to really answer that question, those questions, how do I move forward from a very long plateau? What do I need to focus on? I'd really need to actually talk to you further and diagnose what the issue in order to prescribe the solution. Hope that makes sense. But I hope that's given you some food for thought. So the final question I'm going to deal with today is, how do I keep the faith that I will heal when I've been trying so many things and the CFS symptoms are not shifting? 10 years chronic. I've worked, actually, I won't read out the programs the person's done, but they're saying they've done various programs, changed diet, supplements, read the books, listened to the webinars. My heart goes out to you. I really feel for you. And this person says, at times I just want to give up trying. It's so much work with no results. I believe I can get well, but it's hard to keep going. Now, the first thing I'd say, I hear what you're saying, and that I'm sure resonates with a lot of people. It really resonates with me. And one of the things that I recognize is sometimes that I could be trying too hard. And actually, in doing that, I was just generating a lot of stress. Okay. And sometimes, so I work with a coach. Now it is sort of business and personal development that we focus on. But one of the things that he talks about, I'm just going to find the visual that I've got. Okay, I'll draw it myself. So let me just share my screen again to share this idea. Okay, so let's just check. Hopefully you can see my screen. So yeah, one of the concepts that he shares is as follows. Okay, so we are, when I work on a project, we work on a project for 3 months. Okay, and in the first month, the focus is just to establish some consistency. Okay, so we're working at a sort of gentle level. So for instance, if someone says, okay, I recognize that what would really help me is to practice meditation. And maybe because it's something that's new to me, I'm just going to meditate for 5 minutes once, twice, or 3 times a day. I've talked before about this habit forming technique that the Japanese use, where all you do is you commit to meditating, for example, for 1 minute a day for 30 days. And you do it at the same time. And the idea is that by doing it at the same time, doing it just for a minute, it makes it easy to establish the habit. So let's say that's what you do for the first 30 days. You just focus on meditating for 1 minute a day. Then the next thing you're going to do is the next 30 days, you're just going to build that up gradually. So it might go from 1 minute to, let's say, 5 minutes a day, or 15 minutes a day, let's say. And then in the last 3 months, you're going to just build up the momentum. You might say, right, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes 3 times a day, or 30 minutes 3 times a day. So this phase is called the sprint, okay? This is where you sort of go for it. And obviously in ME terms, it's different perhaps to, let's say, you know, when I'm working on my business in the last, for example, in the last month, I set myself the goal of doing 4 webinars. Should have been 1 a week, but I didn't do one in the first week. So my goal was to do 4 webinars in 3 weeks. And I kind of achieved that goal. The last one I did have to abandon because there were tech issues. But that was the sprint. Now, after you have the sprint, guess what you need to do? Any guesses? I'm going to let's have a bit of interaction whilst you're doing that. I'll just read out where people are from. Got Bournemouth, Dorset, England, sunny French Riviera. So yeah, just if you just join, just say where you are in the world. But my question is, after you go through that phase of the first month starting gently, second month building up a bit of momentum, third month you go for it, and you know, really do the best you can to build, as I say, sprint, but you know, I'm talking about that in the context of ME/CFS. What do you think you do after that 3-month cycle? Okay, I'm just gonna get you to reply to that in the chat. Let's see what you think. Let's have some interaction. It'd be great to just see what your thoughts are. Have a guess. What do you think is really important that you do after you've gone through those 3 phases? I'm going to have a quick swig of drink and wait for some replies. So I want your replies because I'm not giving the answer until I get some replies. Not seeing any replies yet. Still not seeing any replies. Come on, people. I'm not going to read out any names, so just have a guess. What do you think you do after that 3-month cycle, where in the last phase you go for it? Great plan. Thank you. I will keep adding new ideas for the same concept. You're welcome. Maintain. Actually, that's a good answer. That's a good guess. Go for it. Thanks for having a go. Let's have a look. Keep doing it so it becomes second nature. You can do, but there's something else. Meditate, then exercise, then food. You could do that. Marathon. Yeah, what do you do after you run a marathon? Okay, that's a big clue. Do you run another marathon? Well, you do if you're Eddie Izzard, but what would here's the thing. It's okay. You can, if it feels reasonable to maintain that level, then you can. But yeah, Francesca's on the right path. It's okay to actually have a holiday. Okay, that's what we want. Is you've been going for it, and it's okay to say, all right, I'm just going to have a week where I just relax and just, as I say, if you've found that you're in the habit now that's really easy to maintain, that's fine. But it's fine to take a break, to have a holiday. If I have done, and it was like a sprint for me, doing 4 webinars within the space of 3 weeks was a sprint, because I did a webinar, then I worked on it, refined it, did another webinar, worked on it, refined it, did another one, and did another one. That was quite a lot of work doing all those refinements, and I made lots of changes between each one. But then, yeah, then absolutely rest, relax. Okay, so make more goals. That comes later. Okay, once we've had a break. So going back to the question, how do I keep the faith? Do the things you're doing, but recognize when you need to say, okay, I'm just going to have a break from this now. And actually, as I think I said earlier, sometimes we can try too hard. And sometimes we need to just let go. I certainly recognize there were times when I was thinking, I must eat organic food, and I'd get stressed if I didn't get out organic food, and I must do this and I must do that. And it all became very doing. And actually, we do need to spend some time being. Okay. So if that means just saying, right, I'm just going to chill out. I'm just going to, you know, not be striving and goal oriented. I'm just going to take some time and actually just take a more relaxed, slow approach. Okay. And I hope that gives you some, I hope that makes sense. And I hope that gives you some food for thought, because as I say, sometimes I think people do get into worker mode, and that can be counterproductive. There's a balancing act. There's a fine balance between, you know, putting good habits in place, but doing that in a gentle, achievable way. So I hope what I've just shared has given you some food for thought. Let's see if there's any other comments. If not, what I'm going to do, thanks for all your replies and comments, everybody. So what I suggest is we now just finish with a brief relaxation exercise. As I mentioned, I do 3 free strategy sessions every week. I offer 3 sessions. There's no obligation to become a client. I like to do those because it's my way of, number one, showing people how I can help them by actually helping them. And people often find that session useful. It gives them insights on what to work on. Obviously, if you decide you'd like to do some work, that's great. If not, that's fine as well. And it's my way of giving something back, okay? Because I know that for some people with MECFS, your finances are stretched. So it's my little way of giving something back. If you'd like one of those sessions, send me, maybe email me at support at mecfsexplored.com. And in that session, what we do is find out where you are right now, what's working, what's not working, find out what your goals are, what you think is possible, and we find out what you think's getting in the way. And then we identify some strategies, some simple strategies, so you can go away with a sense of clarity, so you can move forward. So if you would like one of those sessions, just get in touch. So you're welcome. A few thank yous coming through. You're welcome. Let's finish with a short meditation exercise. Who's up for that? Whilst I just take a quick swig of water or drink. Just read out a message. Thank you for your time. I know I'm new here, but as I said, it's good to know I'm not in this boat alone. You really aren't, okay? There's lots of other people in the same boat, and I really want the group to be a place where people can support each other and get, you know, support, ask questions because people might have answers, post stuff that might help other people. So, all right, so let's do a short relaxation exercise. I think good comment. I would love a session. Yeah, you know, it's 1 per person. So if you've had one, then it's only 1 per person. But if you haven't, let me know. And even if you just want to do a quick, even if you have had a session, we can do a quick audit that takes about 10-15 minutes. So if you'd like that, then you know there is a charge for that, but you know, get in touch and we can do that. All right, so let's finish with a short relaxation. So some of you will know the exercise I'm about to share, some of you might not. But what we're going to do is I'll explain the exercise and we'll do it for 3 minutes. And if you've got a relaxation exercise that's your preferred exercise, you can do that exercise instead. What I'm going to get you to do in a moment, you can do it now actually, is to close your eyes, put your hands comfortably on your lap, maybe face down, and focus on one of your hands. And now focus on the little finger on that hand. So what I'm going to get you to do in a moment, not yet, is as you focus on your little finger, you're going to breathe in. And as you breathe in, you're going to say a word to yourself silently in your head. Could be any word at all. Peace, calm, love, trust, or any other word. And as you breathe out, you're going to say a different word. Okay, could be any of those words, peace, calm, love, trust, or another word. So a word as you breathe in, a different word as you breathe out. Then you're going to go to your next finger and do the same. Breathe in, say that word silently in your head, breathe out, say that other word silently in your head. Then you're going to go to the next finger, and then your thumb. When you get to your thumb, you go back to your little finger and repeat. If you lose your place, just choose a finger and carry on from there. If you catch yourself thinking about something, then just let go of that thought as if it's floating off on a cloud and go back to the exercise. So I hope that's clear. As I say, you can do your own meditation if you want. But I'm going to set the timer now for 3 minutes. And let's do that exercise starting from now. Okay, so that is time. So maybe just put in the chat what score you were out of 10, with 10 being very relaxed before that 3-minute exercise, and what score you are now out of 10. So two numbers, what number you were out of 10 before you did that 3-minute exercise, what number you are now. Okay, with 10 being very calm and relaxed. So maybe pop those numbers in the chat one after the other. And thanks everybody for watching. If you've just joined, as someone has, hello, we've just finished, so you can catch the replay. 4, then an 8. Cool. How cool is that? To go from a 4 to an 8 in the space of 3 minutes. 2 to an 8. That's very cool as well. So 6 to 9, great, lovely. Yeah, I feel more relaxed. I probably went from I'd say a 7 to a 9, 2 to a 7. So isn't that interesting that in the space of 3 minutes, you can dramatically improve your score? 2 to an 8. So excellent. So I really encourage people to do that exercise. Actually, there is if you haven't downloaded it already, in the group, there is a link to a free audio where I share that exercise. So if you haven't got that, download it. You can put it on your phone and just practice doing that exercise. Okay, 2 to, I think I read that out already, 2 to 8. Excellent. All right, listen, everybody, thanks for joining. If you've got any questions, do pop them in the chat. I will post the link to the video in the group, and I'll tag anyone who said webinar. So, and I'll maybe have a look at this thread tomorrow as well. But after that, just if you'd still want that link to the webinar, and you haven't found it in the group, just send me a message or an email, support@mecfsexplored.com. Thanks, bye everyone. Bye, thanks everyone for joining. Bye for now.